The library card with my name, but I never signed up for it. It's funny how a single, mundane object can unravel your entire life. For me, it was a library card. I'm Leo, 28 years old, and my world up until that point was a neat, predictable grid of spreadsheets and deadlines. I was a junior financial analyst, a good one, with a life that was comfortable and safe. That's why the library card felt so wrong. It was tucked into a returned book I'd found in my mail, a misdelivered package that was supposed to go to my neighbor, Mark. I'd grabbed it from his mailbox by accident, and when I went to give it to him, the card had fallen out. I was about to just hand it over, but then I saw it. The name on the card was mine, Leo Jensen, my full name. My heart did a strange little skip. I stood there on the porch, a little rain starting to fall, just staring at the small plastic card. It had my name, a barcode, and a simple expiration date. But I had never been to the public library in this town. I hadn't had a library card since I was a kid. This wasn't just a misdelivered card, it was a ghost of a life I'd never lived. The card felt cold in my hand, a physical piece of a puzzle I didn't know existed. A quick knock on Mark's door, and I handed him his book, but I kept the card. The next day, after work, a strange, undeniable pull led me to the library downtown. The building itself was old and imposing, a grand stone structure with giant glass windows that looked out onto the city. Inside, the air smelled like old paper and polished wood. The silence was a physical presence, a comforting hush I hadn't felt in years. I walked up to the front desk, the library card still clutched in my hand, and a wave of anxiety washed over me. What was I even doing? Was this a joke? Was it a simple mistake? I handed the card to the librarian, a woman named Helen, who was probably in her late 50s with a pair of reading glasses perched on her nose. She had a kind, tired face. She took the card, scanned it, and looked at me, her eyes a little weary. Leo Jensen, she said quietly. It's been a while. I felt a jolt go through my body. She knew me. I'm sorry, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I think there's a mistake. This card isn't mine. I never signed up for it. Helen just looked at me, a gentle smile on her face. Of course it's yours, she said, pulling up my information on her computer. You've been a member for 2 years now. I felt a sudden, profound confusion. 2 years. I hadn't been here in 2 years. I'd been working, going to the gym, watching Netflix. My life had been a series of spreadsheets. It had not involved a library. I took a deep breath. I'm sorry, I said, my voice firmer now. But I haven't. Helen's smile didn't falter. Well, your card has been used quite a bit, she said, turning the screen to face me. Would you like to see your borrowing history? I stared at the screen, and my heart started to pound in my chest. The list of books was a complete stranger to me, and yet, it was the most familiar thing I had ever seen. They were not my books. My books were about finance, about the global market. These were books about philosophy, about art history, about travel guides to places I had only ever dreamed of going. There was a book on watercolor painting, another on the history of ancient Greece, a collection of poetry by an obscure writer I'd always meant to read. My dreams were all there, reflected in a list of books I had never checked out. This wasn't just a mistake. This was a different life. A parallel life. A life I had once wanted. A life where I read books about art instead of earnings reports, where I planned trips to faraway places instead of just saving money. I felt a wave of regret so strong it took my breath away. Could you tell me what the last book checked out was? I asked, my voice barely audible. Helen tapped a few keys. The last book was a travel guide to an old city in Italy, one I had always wanted to visit. I was mesmerized. Can I check it out? I asked. Of course, she said, a kind, knowing look in her eyes. It's yours. I walked out of the library with the book in my hand, a heavy, beautiful thing that felt like a weight of destiny. I sat on a bench outside, the book in my lap, and slowly opened it. I flipped through the pages, the glossy pictures of ancient ruins and sun-drenched streets a strange, beautiful contrast to my gray, practical life. And then I saw it. Tucked inside the pages, was a small, neatly folded piece of paper. It was a note, and it was addressed to me. I held my breath and opened the note. The handwriting was neat, elegant, and unfamiliar. It said, "Hello, Leo. You've probably found this by accident. Or maybe, by some strange twist of fate, you found it just when you were supposed to. I've been living a little bit of your life, the part you forgot about. I've been reading the books you were supposed to read, seeing the things you were supposed to see. This is the first of many notes. This is a journey to find what you've lost. Go to the corner cafe on Elm Street. Sit in the chair in the back. Order a coffee, and wait." I sat there, stunned. It wasn't a mistake. It was deliberate. Someone had been living a parallel life using my name, and they were trying to get my attention. The note felt like a challenge, a dare, and a promise all at once. My entire body was buzzing with a mix of fear and excitement. I had no idea who this person was, or why they were doing this. All I knew was that my mundane, predictable life had just taken a very strange turn. I went home, put the note in my wallet, and for the first time in years, I didn't go straight to my computer. My mind was too full of questions. The next morning, I did something completely out of character. I called in sick. I didn't have a cold. I didn't have a fever. I had a mission. I put on a simple jacket and a pair of jeans, and I walked down to the corner cafe. It was a small, cozy place, the kind of place I would never go to. It had a warm, homey feel, the smell of freshly brewed coffee and baked goods filling the air. I walked to the back, and there it was. The chair. A simple, wooden chair, a little worn from time. I sat down and just waited. The coffee was hot and delicious, but I didn't really taste it. I was too busy watching the world. The woman behind the counter, a woman with kind eyes and a tired smile, was serving coffee and talking to her customers. I looked at the old photographs on the wall, pictures of the city from long ago. I saw a young couple sitting in the corner, holding hands. I saw an old man reading a newspaper. I had always been in such a rush to get somewhere. I had never just sat still and watched. My mind went back to my childhood. I remembered a time I had been here before, a long time ago. I was with my older brother, Jack. He's 32 now. He had just gotten his first job, and he had brought me here to celebrate. I was 10 years old. He had ordered me a hot chocolate, and I remember feeling so grown up. He had told me that one day, he was going to buy this cafe, and we would run it together. I remembered laughing, and telling him that I was going to be an astronaut. We never did. He became an accountant, and I became a financial analyst. We both chose practicality over dreams. I sat there for 2 hours, just watching, just waiting. I was about to give up when I saw a woman sitting at the table I had just left. She was holding a small piece of paper, and she was looking at me. She had a kind, gentle smile. I realized what was happening. She wasn't the one leaving the notes. She was a messenger. She gave me a small nod, and she left. I walked over to the table and saw it. Another note. I held it in my hands, a mix of fear and excitement. The note was just as elegant as the first one. It said, "You're learning to wait. You're learning to see. The next clue is where the future and the past meet. Where you told me your biggest dream. Find the big oak tree in the city park. The one you and I used to sit under as kids. Look for the small, carved heart with our initials." My mind went blank. I had a big oak tree in the city park. My heart was pounding. It was the place where I had told my best friend that I wanted to be an astronaut. His name was Julian. We had carved our initials on the tree, and we had promised to be friends forever. We had moved away from each other when we were teenagers, and we had lost touch. I hadn't seen him in years. Could this be him? I went to the park. The city park was a huge, sprawling place, a green oasis in the middle of concrete and steel. I walked past the playground, the basketball courts, the baseball diamond, and my mind went back to being a kid. The sounds, the smells, the feel of the grass under my feet. I saw a group of kids playing tag, and I remembered a time when that was all that mattered. I saw a young couple holding hands, and I remembered a time when that was all that mattered. I had lost so much of my childhood. I had lost so much of myself. I found the oak tree. It was just as big and just as beautiful as I remembered. I ran my hand over the bark, and I found it. The small, carved heart, a little faded with age, with our initials still there. L+J. I sat down under the tree, my back against the rough bark, and I felt a wave of sadness wash over me. I had forgotten about this place. I had forgotten about this friendship. I had forgotten about this dream. I reached for the last note, the one that the woman in the cafe had given me. It was tucked into a small plastic bag, sealed with tape. The note was simple. It said, "You found the dreams. Now find the reason." The last note was not a clue. It was an address. It was a street name and a building number. It was the address of a house I didn't know. The final clue was a dead end, a challenge that I was supposed to figure out on my own. I looked at the note, and a strange sense of dread washed over me. The joy and the excitement of the scavenger hunt was gone. All I felt was fear. The feeling that something was very, very wrong. I went home. I didn't go to work the next day. I just sat in my apartment, staring at the note, my mind racing. I was about to throw it away, to pretend this whole thing had never happened. To go back to my boring, predictable life. But I couldn't. I had to know. I had to know who this person was, and why they were doing this. The next morning, I drove to the address on the note. It was in an old, quiet part of town, a neighborhood with small houses and big trees. The house was small, with a neat garden and a single light on in the window. I walked up to the door, my heart pounding in my chest. I knocked, and waited. A woman in her late 50s, with a kind, tired face, opened the door. She looked at me, a soft, sad smile on her face. "Leo," she said, her voice quiet and gentle. "I was hoping you'd come." I was so confused. "Do I know you?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "No," she said, "but I know you. My name is Margaret. I'm Julian's mom." My heart froze. Julian, the boy from the park. My best friend. My mind was reeling. He was here. My best friend from childhood was here. He was the one who had left the notes. But why? I looked at her, and my eyes filled with tears. "Where is he?" I asked, my voice thick with emotion. Margaret just looked at me, a profound sadness in her eyes. "He's not here anymore," she said. "He passed away a few months ago. He had cancer." I just stood there, speechless. The world around me went quiet. The air felt heavy, the silence deafening. The joy and the excitement of the scavenger hunt was replaced with a deep, profound sadness. My best friend from childhood was gone. My mind went back to all the notes, all the clues, all the places he had sent me. The library card, the books, the cafe, the park. It wasn't a game. It was a last wish. A last desperate act of a dying friend to get my attention, to get me to see the life I was missing. Margaret led me inside. The house was small and cozy, a home full of warmth and love. There were pictures of Julian everywhere. Pictures of him as a boy, pictures of him in high school, and pictures of him as a young man. I saw a picture of him and me, our arms around each other, laughing, our faces young and carefree. She led me to a small room in the back. It was his room. It was neat and tidy. On a small desk, there was a stack of books, the same books I had seen on the library list. And on top of the stack, there was a letter. It was addressed to me. I sat down and opened it. The handwriting was neat, elegant, and familiar. It was from Julian. I read the letter, and my heart broke. He told me that he had been sick for a long time. That he had a rare form of cancer, and that he didn't have much time left. He told me that he had been watching me for years. He told me that he knew I was living a life that wasn't my own. He knew I had dreams I had given up on. He knew I had a passion for art, a love for travel, a soul that was meant for so much more than spreadsheets and deadlines. He told me that he had gotten a library card with my name on it, and that he had been living a life in parallel with mine. He was reading the books I was supposed to read. He was seeing the places I was supposed to see. He was living the life I was too afraid to live. He told me that he wanted to leave me something. A legacy. He told me that he knew I was a good person, a kind person. But he also knew I was a scared person. He told me that he had lived a life full of passion and adventure, a life that was too short, but a life that was full. He told me that he wanted to give me a chance to do the same. He told me that he was tired of seeing my life pass me by. He told me that he had a final request. He wanted me to live. He wanted me to live the life I had always wanted to live, the life he had been living for me. He wanted me to chase the dreams I had given up on. He told me that he was sorry he couldn't be here to see me do it. He told me that he would be watching. I finished the letter, and I felt a wave of profound sadness and gratitude. My best friend from childhood had given me the most beautiful, most painful gift I had ever received. He had given me my life back. I walked out of that house a different person. I was still grieving, still heartbroken, but I was no longer lost. I was no longer just a man in a suit, a human cog in a machine. I was a man with a purpose. I was a man with a legacy. I quit my job. It was the hardest thing I had ever done, but it was also the easiest. I told my boss I was going to chase my dreams. He thought I was crazy. He was probably right, but I didn't care. The world was bigger than spreadsheets. Life was more than a paycheck. I went to an art supply store and bought a sketchbook, a set of pencils, a canvas, and a set of paints. I went home and started to draw. The first few drawings were terrible, but they were mine. They were from my heart. I booked a flight to Italy, to the city in the travel guide. I was going to see the world Julian had seen for me. The journey was a bittersweet one. I was alone, but I wasn't. Julian was with me. I felt his presence in every museum, every cathedral, every ancient ruin. I saw the world with his eyes. I saw the beauty, the history, the art. I saw the world with a sense of wonder that I hadn't felt since I was a child. The journey was not about finding a destination. It was about finding myself. When I came back, my life was different. I was different. I was no longer a man who lived his life on a script. I was a man who wrote his own script. I was a man who chased his dreams. I was a man who lived in the present. The library card, the books, the notes, they were all a part of my story now. They were a part of Julian's story. It was a story about a friendship that never died, a story about a man who gave up his life to save mine. It was a story about how a single, mundane object could unravel your life, and at the same time, give it a beautiful, new meaning. I was finally ready to start living.